Hello everyone, let's get this show on the road. This is probably going to be a particularly short stream because we're basically just going to, we put the putty on this side last week. So now we're going to sand this until it's smooth. And then we're going to put the putty on the other side and let it dry for a week. So, not a lot to be done. But that's okay. Not all of these are going to be 7 hours, and that's probably merciful. So, how's everybody doing? Lightning McQueen says, "Hi, Lemmy, and everyone, happy Saturday." Miss Happy Saturday, Lightning McQueen. It's just such an honor to have Lightning McQueen in these streams. Alright, so I've got a bunch of sandpaper here. Don't ask me what type of sandpaper it is. I have no clue. This says P180. This says P120. I'm sure that gives an idea of how rough it is. Maybe just by looking at it, you'll be able to get an idea. And so it's pretty rough. So I'm just going to go ahead and start here. Basically, I just cut a sliver of it out. And then I do want you to get an idea for just how rough this is. I mean, look at that. So memorize that, because in a second here, we're going to have a much smoother bow. And let's get a close-up look at what I'm doing here. Wooden Railway Edward asks, any idea when the official announcement for the TUGS series is coming out? It'll come out almost immediately after I finish the tutorial. I intend to immediately proceed it. My hope is that in order to help people contribute to the series, I make a tutorial on how to make wooden railway models, TUGS models, but that could be applied to a lot of other things too. And that tutorial would be very helpful to people who want to figure out how to contribute. So I'm thinking I should probably release that tutorial before I release the announcement, just so that everybody, has a way of actually, figuring out how to make models and contribute if they're not totally certain on how to do that. But that tutorial is taking a very long time. So I don't know exactly when the announcement will come out. Probably middle of next week, maybe. I'm not sure. I've got a lot to edit on that tutorial. But I would say whenever the tutorial is done, a day or two later, we'll follow the announcement. So you see this really that really big lump right there that we're sanding. We want to kind of turn that into a consistent curve. And I put a lot of extra putty on there because originally that was a dent. So I turned it into a bulge. And now I'm hoping that when I sand it down, you'll have exactly the right thickness. This would actually be a good thing to do outside if you could. I'm going to at least turn on the fan and crack the window. Wow, look at how smooth that stretch right there is. If we could just get it all that smooth, that would be amazing. I'm trying to sand really hard over the areas that are unsightly bumps, like this right here, and then sand more lightly over the the smoother areas that don't really have any structural problems, but just need kind of a better texture. Because in my mind, the putty does two things. It doesn't just it doesn't just cover up the tape. It also can cover up dents and divots and kind of balance out shape problems. If the shape isn't quite right, you can fix it at this stage. And remember, this is after it's sitting for like a week. So it might be easier to sand if you only left it for a day. That's really nice and smooth. That's pretty cool. Part of this too is kind of the feel of it. Like this, you can't tell, but this feels a lot smoother, and it's really cool. Cool Election TV says, I like your channel name. I own a real AMC Pacer and I've always liked the lemons. That's really cool. I would love to own a Pacer. Like honestly, my favorite car of all time is the AMC Gremlin. The Pacer's not far behind. Like, I actually do really love how they look. I have no clue how they drive. But I do really really love their appearance. I've never actually seen one of them in person. I would love to. So you might notice this kind of T shape that's like kind of forming right here. And that's a result of the putty right there being a lot further out than everywhere else. So that is going, and this is really kind of over sanded. And then the rest of it is just kind of normally sanded. Because, this is getting the brunt of it because it sticks out further. So I'm hoping to sand that long enough that eventually that T kind of disappears. Again, if you're under 18, talk to your parents before sanding putty dust. I don't know what that entails. Talk to a legal guardian. Talk to whoever is responsible for you, and make sure that this is a good idea. Okay, this is getting dramatically smoother. I do like that a lot, but that line there is still very defined. Like, I really just want to... I think that's actually shape-wise getting better. It's just very obvious because it's a different color, but once it's painted over, I think that might be a totally different story. Nice. This is going to get very tiring very quickly. Useful Engine 11 says, what? Even me? If you're referring to the Ask a Legal Guardian before using this stuff thing, then yes, even you. It depends on how old you are. Pretty sure you're under 18, though, Useful. I don't know, that's what I would have done. So now I'm kind of cutting underneath the splash rails, and you really want to create. In fact, let me cut out another one of these. You really want like a very sharp contrast. You know, like where it like basically goes 90 degrees from the splash rail to the hole. You really want it to go like cut in sharp like that. So I'm gonna like fold it over only once and have kind of a blade where I kind of do this. Look at how sharp that line down there is. That's pretty cool. I will be 17 in November, says Useful. Well, still not an adult. And as a general rule, I think it's safe to be cautious. Oh, that is really cool. Look at that. Look at that. What did Bailey keep calling it? Flyer rails. Look at those. You know, the V-shaped ones. Like, aren't those so neat? And they're a lot smoother than the ones right above them. You see that? Floating vessels are just shouting ZBD. I wonder how many more tutorials just to explain the process of building prop replica tugs, says Useful Engine 11. Probably like 40, if I had to guess. We'll see if I actually get that far. But I will say, I think that it may not be feasible to get to the very end of this project, but it's quite possible that I will at least get to the point where the face and eye mechanism are made. So I know that's what a lot of people are interested in. So we'll at least get that far, because we're not far away from that now. That's pretty cool. See, look at that right there. Like, it's still, you know, it's still got its imperfections, but, you know, the masking tape isn't nearly as visible, really visible at all. And it's, you know, a lot smoother overall. They seem to have developed a bit of a crack here. Right. You see that right there? But I'm not too concerned about that, because really I'm surprised we haven't developed more so far. You want to sand this so that it doesn't flake or crack, but also sand it so that it's smooth. Like, you want to kind of strike that balance of not sanding it too hard, but not too light either. see. You know, it'd be kind of nice if my Ertl George would come in the mail, says Cheeky Bluey too. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, it's very annoying when a package takes forever to arrive. World of Cars Entertainment says, I know this is a Thomas Tugs related channel, but what are your thoughts on the Cars franchise? I wouldn't say it's a Thomas or Tugs related channel. I would say this video is definitely Tugs related. The channel is a Cars channel. I mean, look at the name and the profile picture. Most of the videos on the channel are Cars related. It's just that for the last several years, I've been in the Thomas community, so I've been doing more of that stuff. But one day I really hope to get back to Cars, because that's definitely one of my major passions. And I adore the Cars franchise. I mean, it's really, really cool. Just the whole idea of like a world of Cars is amazing, because like there's so many. I love when a universe gives you the framework and then you get to work with it yourself. Like the Cars universe gives us a bunch of rules, essentially, a bunch of patterns to follow. Of okay, every real world event happened in the Cars universe. Every human, historical figure that was in our world was a car in the Cars universe. So like you have to like you kind of put the pieces together and figure out like, okay, well, what would Gandhi have been like in the Cars universe? What would the Soviet Union be like in the Cars universe? What would the Cold War be like? What would Stalin be like? What would American politics be like? What would George Washington be like in the Cars universe? How does he cross the Delaware if he's a car? Or is he the boat that crosses the Delaware? Like, it's those sorts of questions, right? Like I love that sort of theorizing. It's like it breeds such creativity. And my favorite movie is Cars 2, just for the fact that it does that world building the most. Like, because here's the thing, Cars, it may be about race cars, and race cars are cool and all that, but I'm not a sports fan. I'm not a sports guy. That's not who I am. And Cars is a sports movie. I mean, it doesn't, purport itself to be that, because, it's about race cars. And that's the gimmick. But when you think about it functionally, Lightning wants to win the game. Racing in their world is like football in our world. And so I like it, but if I was going to focus on one area of this world of Cars, I wouldn't focus on racing. I would focus on like espionage, on like spies. That's amazing. That's so cool. I mean, are you kidding me? Like in Cars as spies? Like that's the coolest thing ever. So I just like the cast of characters in Cars 2 more than the first Cars. And of course, Mater and Lightning are still there and everything. And their story is very touching. But, I like the parts of Cars 2 I like the most are like Finn and Professor Z and Holly Shiftwell and Miles Axelrod and Graham and Acer. Like, those are the coolest parts of the franchise to me. But I love Radiator Springs as well, and clearly so much thought went into the design of it. Pixar did so much research. I mean, Pixar is one of my greatest inspirations. It probably is for a lot of people, but like, there's a lot. I would just pore over those. On the DVDs, you'd get these behind-the-scenes kind of commentary, special features, and you would get these kind of behind-the-scenes looks where they would kind of talk about their process for creating characters, storyboarding, concept art, and there's just so much thought that went into Cars. It's so cool. It's just so clever, the way that they go about it. Like, the way the cars move, for instance, they basically take the entire body and kind of animate it as if it were a head. So like if they have to like kind of nod to the left or to the right, they do that. If they need to kind of gesture with their hands, then they use their front tires. It's like, it's so clever and it feels so natural. A lot of people hate cars for some reason. They say, oh, I can't relate to a car. All right, well, then get out. If you struggle to relate to things, that's not my problem. I like the movie, all right? I like the Cars movies. I think they're I think they're amazing. I think they are relatable, and I think that cars are like a really big part of American culture. You know, it's kind of like, I mean, it's not a direct one-to-one comparison, but if Thomas is like Britain's vehicle thing, cars is like America's vehicle thing. Because I think, trains are a big deal in America, but much bigger of a deal, I think, are cars. So I call BS on the idea that people can't relate to cars. World of Cars Entertainment says, I do know the Planes spin-off talk about wars and stuff. Yeah, no, it does. It's like I think the first Planes movie, Skipper is a World War II veteran. And it's really interesting. You see flashbacks to that era. It's really crazy. So that's really cool. Like, that sort of world building is just so neat. I like the Planes movies. They're not Pixar, but they fit very well into the Cars universe. They're Disney Toon Studios, so it's kind of weird that anybody but Pixar is going and making like Cars universe movies, but they're definitely in the same world, and that's really cool, I think. I really want to know what trains are like in the Cars universe. Like how do you design a town? Let's just take a moment to appreciate how much smoother the splash rails have become in the time that I've been sanding. Let's see. George the Steamroller says, I don't think Planes isn't really that great as Cars. What? That could mean a lot of things. Trey's Train says, Lemmy, do you find a Big Jigs Black 5 will be good for Peter? Peter. The Wild Nor'Wester OC? I don't know. I mean, I think Big Jigs stuff is expensive, isn't it? It's hard to find. I would say, I mean, it depends on what you're, if you're doing like a, I don't know. I mean, I would say just repaint a Henry. I mean, that would be closer. It really depends on what you're trying to make it consistent with. I mean, people fall into this trap of they see something that's the same color, that has the same name, and they think, oh, yes, this is how I should represent this thing, right? Peter is, I mean, not a Black 5, but he is an 8F, I think. And, they're very similar. So you would think on the surface, that's what I should use. But just because it's called a Black 5 and just because it's painted like a Black 5 doesn't mean the shape is quite right. I mean, it could be that, using like a big city engine or something would be much closer. I mean, not that, but you get what I mean. It's like I see people fall into this trap, like when they want to make like I've seen people make wooden railway 10 senses before, and they do it by shaving down a Theodore tugboat Brio chassis, and it's like, well, at that point it would have been easier to just buy a block of wood and cut that down. But that scares people, right? Because then they're like, no, how do I turn this into a boat, though? I don't know how to turn it into a boat. And it's like, you realize you just took a boat that was nothing like 10 cents, and then you sanded it down into something that looked like 10 cents. That's the same thing as taking a block of wood and sanding it down. The only difference is that you destroyed a rare item. So my point being, a lot of the time it's best just to start from scratch or to start with something that looks nothing like it, right? Like if you're trying to make Peter, maybe don't look at engines that, are close to his class. Maybe don't look at Black 5s. Maybe just look at things that generally have the right shape. Like, a Henry would definitely do the trick, I think. But you could also take a Gordon and change the firebox, and there you go. Like, there's, you can think about what shape you're looking for. Don't think about the name as much. Don't think about, oh, this website says it's a black 5, so I'm gonna use it. I think it's pretty evident what I'm doing. Like, I'm not showing you most of it, but I'm just basically sanding on this over and over again until it gets sanded down. Like, it's probably not something I need to show in detail. This is something that I should show, though, is you can see I folded this whole thing up to kind of make it thicker so that I could, kind of get a grip on it. Well, when the outside is getting dull, you can just refold it on the other way, and then all of a sudden, it's a lot sharper. Now I'm trying to figure out the best way to make this smoother. And I almost wonder if the putty, because a lot of these dents and imperfections are still going to be visible in the final version, but I almost wonder if it would be better to use this layer of putty as a way of filling in the more major imperfections, which is what I'm doing. And then going over this entire thing with like layers of masking tape, and then going over that with like a thick layer of Mod Podge that I then kind of smooth out, and then going over that with Flex Seal. Like, that might honestly be a good thing to do. I don't know. I mean, I may experiment with this. Or, actually, it could be a good thing to just forget the masking tape, just go over this entire thing with Mod Podge, like really thick outdoor Mod Podge, and then fill all the kind of gaps that way. It could be the way to go. difficult to get the it's difficult to sand this little area right in here. So I think I might just kind of chip that out. Like that. Let's scrape it instead of sand it. Let's see, World of Cars Entertainment says, so did you use cardboard with tons of tape added to it and then sanded it? I put putty over it. So basically I made it out of cardboard, you can see from the inside. Then I put it together with masking tape. And then I put the Durham's water putty over everything. And then, and I laid that on really thick, and then I sanded it to get this. So that's how I went about it. That's pretty cool. It's not perfect. I don't really like these like very clear kind of edges right there, those seams. It's really supposed to be like just kind of a smooth curve from here to here. But that's not bad. What I do like about the water putty is that it kind of locks everything in place. Like the splash rails are not going to flex now. They're not going to bend out of position. That looks really good. See, look at that. Trey's Trains asks, Lemmy, how many people are in the Thomas community? I wish I knew. I've asked that question countless times. Thousands at least. Useful Engine 11 says, hey Lemmy, after the stream is over, do you mind checking Skype as I had a question for you and I just wanted a yes or no answer? Yeah, you and everyone else useful. Everybody has a question for me. Check Skype, Lemmy. Check Skype. Check Skype. Check Skype. Please check Skype. Check Skype. Check Skype. Check Skype. Check it. Check Skype. The more you poke your head out of the cave, the more they ask of you. Cheeky Blue E2 asks, so, Lemmy, you gonna pop a squat? No. No, I'm not. That should be evident by now. Interesting. What do people think exactly? You know, I mean, like, I'm on Skype every single day, right? I see everybody's messages. I see all the notifications. But it's just a lot of work to go through and answer all of them. And, you know, I'm not absolutely linked to my phone, you know? I mean, I'm not... You know, I don't spend every hour of every day on Twitter or Skype or whatever. I'd rather spend my time with other things a lot of the time. I mean, I guess, you know, somebody with more energy could probably go through and answer all those messages every single day. But it's like, I don't know. I don't have a desire to. Of course, I'm good friends with Useful and with, you know, a lot of other people who send me messages. But at the same time, it's so many messages. How do you pick? How do you pick what people to answer and what people not to? And you realize, Useful, if I go and answer you today, well, okay, why didn't I answer the other 26 people? Do I have to now go and answer them? And all of a sudden, it's 12 at night, and I have to go to bed. And then it all starts over the next day. That's the thing. You know, it's like I really got to pick my battles. You know, and maybe someone with more energy could answer those 26 notifications in 5 minutes. But for me, it takes 5 hours. And, you know, it's hard to pick who to answer. And so what? Am I supposed to just put aside, you know, an hour of my day each day to answer fan mail, essentially? I mean, it's, you know, it becomes a chore. It just baffles me that when I'm so unreliable at answering messages that people still send me messages. Like, you would think they would stop. You'd think they'd be like, oh, well, this guy sucks. He doesn't ever answer me. I'm going to move on. But no, people are so persistent. Why? Floating Vessels guy says, Lemmy, what do you think of 10 cents? As a character or like a specific 10 cents someone made? I would say in general, 10 cents is really cool. He's really interesting as like a main character because he's not perfect. There's like, he's got a lot of, you know, it's interesting. His failings as a character, his flaws are exactly inverse to Thomas's flaws. Because Thomas's problem is that he's impulsive, that he's overpassionate, that he jumps into situations without thinking, that he's, you know, he's very, you know, he's very anti-establishment. If you tell him that tank engines aren't meant to pull passengers, then he will go out of his way to prove you wrong, and obsess over it to the point where he becomes the most famous steam engine of all time, right? That's how Thomas thinks. Whereas 10 cents is very, very pro-establishment. You know, he strongly believes in upholding the law, upholding the rules, You know, I was watching Pirate the other day, and there's this one scene in there that I think says a lot about Tencent. Is, you know, Tencent has been framed for stealing barges, right? So he's looking for the crook who actually did it, and you know, and everybody's on watch looking for this guy in the dead of night. And Tencent is just so eager to get him. He's just like, you know, let's get this guy and let's put him in jail. That's what I want to do, you know. And then, you know, Grampus shows up. And he's like, Tencent, I know who stole the barges. And Tencent is like, right, let's get him. Let's nail him. And he's so ready to go, right? And Grampus is like, no, Tencent, it's more complicated than that. And Tencent is like, no, I want him now, you know. And, you know, Grampus is like, will you listen for a second? The guy is being forced to do it. I mean, this is a ransom situation we've got here. He doesn't mean to steal the barges. That's not his point. Like, he has to, like, you realize if Grampus hadn't held him back, Tencent would have just gone, sicked the Coast Guard on Sea Rogue, and just got him out of the port, right? He would have sent that guy to jail, without even hearing the full story, because he's so certain. He's not really willing to, like, hear a criminal's, like, you know, their justification. He's not willing to hear that. He's not willing to hear, you know, it wasn't my fault. I was pushed. I was forced to, etc. Right? He's not really prepared to hear that. He's just kind of thinking bad guys do bad things, and that guy's a bad guy who did a bad thing. So let's send him off to prison, right? That's his thinking. You know, and of course, once Grampus tells him the full situation, of course Tencent does the right thing and, you know, and rescues Sea Rogue from that situation. But he's not actively ready to, like, give someone the benefit of the doubt, which is interesting. He's not ready to question the system. That's not really how he thinks. You know, he's just incredibly loyal to the way things are. I would guess that, you know, the Z stacks are not fully, they're not the villains we make them out to be. I'm sure that they've done a lot of nefarious things and they're quite devious. But I think that that's also because they have no money. You know, their business will fail if they don't, you know, pull some nasty tricks now and then. And Tencent just sees them as these nefarious criminals, but it's like, well, do they really have much choice, right? And Tencent isn't willing to look at it that way. He's not willing to kind of to give it a fair assessment and say, okay, well, maybe some of this is out of their control. Maybe they're acting out of self-preservation rather than, you know, just being these evil, you know, these kind of, you know, evildoers who lack any real moral motivation. So I think that's really interesting, because Tencent is like that. And I think that it makes Zoran a really good foil to him, because Zoran's willing to break the rules in order to keep his fleet running. Tencent would never break the rules, ever. You know, it's interesting. Tencent reminds me a lot of Duck. I think the two of them are very similar characters. It's kind of like how Duck, you ever think about Bulgy, about the fact that when Bulgy's trapped under the bridge, you know, and Duck is crossing the thing, right? Bulgy's like, stop, it might fall on me. And Duck's like, that will serve you right for stealing our passengers. Like, that's such an extreme thing to do. He could have crushed the guy, right? But Duck doesn't care. Why? Because Bulgy broke the rules, big time. He committed a crime, so he deserves to be punished, and he deserves to have his safety thrown to the wayside. And, you know, obviously Duck has a limit, but his limit's a lot farther than a lot of other people. If someone breaks the rules, if somebody does the wrong thing, he's more okay with them being hurt than somebody who follows the rules. Not every character is like that. A lot of characters are, you know, more lenient than that, and, you know, they don't see things that way. Think about Thomas, right? I think Thomas is a hothead, and he is overpassionate, but at the same time, I think that he is willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. If they personally slight him, then he'll be angry and he'll fight them on it, but it'll be man to man. Right? If Stanley threatens Thomas's, you know, branch line, and Stanley, you know, is threatening to take over, you know, his passenger traffic, that's a problem between him and Stanley. He's not going to sick the fat controller on him. He's just gonna, you and me outside the pub now. that's how he's gonna, you know, react to Stanley. Whereas, you know, Tencent would tell the authorities, right? Tencent would do something else, right? He would tell Captain Star. he would say this guy's out to get us, and he did the XYZ thing wrong, and that's not acceptable. It's a very different mentality, and yet 10 Cents is still heroic because he's willing to sacrifice a lot himself, but at the same time, I don't think he realizes how good he has it, because he is part of the Star Fleet, and he is quite lucky to be part of the big, successful fleet with 7 boats, rather than the Z-Stacks, who are, covered in patchwork and, all grimy and dirty, and Jack has engine problems, and, he's living in a different world. Whereas Thomas, I think he gives people the benefit of the doubt. Think about when he meets Luke, right? He's willing, even though Luke did something wrong, allegedly, Thomas is willing to figure out what really happened, right? He's willing to kind of go and clear his name, because whereas 10 Cents, I think, would just assume from the get-go that Luke actually did it, because that conforms to his narrative. And that's telling too. 10 Cents, like Thomas, is one of the smallest characters in his sphere, right? This isn't brought up much. Warrior in the very first episode, he's like, "Yeah, that's right. Big Tugs only 10 cents." But it's that never comes up again, really. But it's interesting it doesn't come up because it comes up a lot with Thomas. The tagline for his movie was "Little engines can do big things," right? That is Thomas's entire philosophy. It's sticking it to Gordon. It's sticking it to the man. It's going and really, making his mark despite the fact that the world thinks he belongs in a shunting yard. That is Thomas's MO. But 10 Cents doesn't seem to have much of a problem with being lower on the totem pole. It's almost as if he feels he deserves to be there. He's a switcher. He does his job as a switcher. Whereas, Thomas, if he were a switcher in a big harbor, would hate it. He would want to go and do the impressive stuff, right? He would want to go and pull passengers, go get out on the, get his own branch line, right? 10 Cents doesn't try to go and get his own branch line. 10 Cents isn't even really working up through the ranks. He's just kind of taking whatever the Starfleet throws at him and trying to be a contributing member of society, even if that society places him at the bottom. It's very interesting. 10 Cents and Thomas, if they were together, would get into such a loud political argument so quickly. Partly just because Thomas wants a fight. Thomas is a naturally competitive person. That's why he races Birdie. That's why he kind of, tries to start an argument with Terrence, but that doesn't really work out. That's why he goes and wakes Gordon up, right? Thomas is kind of ready to brawl, he's kind of a fighter. 10 Cents will he'll take up arms if he has to. He'll take up arms if if his interests are in danger. If he's been accused of something, of course he wants to go and get the guy, right? Of course he'll beat up some pirates, but he doesn't ever do that unless he has to. Whereas Thomas kind of enjoys a good argument, I think, deep down. I think that's why we see him do it so often. "10 Cents shows his heroic side in munitions," says Cheeky Bluey too. Yeah, no, he definitely does. That's mainly what I was thinking of when I said that. It's that's probably his most heroic moment in the show. It's interesting that 10 cents is kind of irritable. Like, he's not really good-spirited all the time. He's irritable for most of Jinxed. He's, he's irritable in Pirate. He's like, I guess because it's funny. He's the butt of the joke more often than we give him credit for. Like, in Jinxed, it's that his whistle is somehow cursed, and that pisses him off. And then in Pirate, it's that he's been accused of being a pirate, and that pisses him off. And, it's like, it's funny to see that, because the way he reacts. Sunshine would take something like that in stride, I think. Whereas 10 cents, he would not. Alright, I think that might be good enough. I think there are some places I'd like to fill in further. I don't know when I'll do that exactly. It could be that I know now I'm going to apply this side of Putty. It could be that next week I sand this side, but I also apply a third coat, and then the week after that I sand that. Maybe? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll have to see about that. One Gone Driver says, imagine if it went like this. That's a bomb, man. Just leave it, will ya? And then 10 cents goes, I'll be out. And then wait, it's a what? And then it blows up. God damn it. It's interesting that Sunshine says man. It's bomb man. Like, it really fits him. But it's also interesting, is like, were people using that term in the 20s? This part's kind of fun. Kind of cracking that out. Look at this. Some solid ASMR. Be careful with this stuff, though. It can be sharp. Oh, where do I put it? I'm just gonna dump it here for now. Braden C says, Lemmy, when is the next character gallery? I don't know. There won't be one this month. I've been too busy with all the boat stuff. I intend for there to be at least one next month. I'd hope for two, but, we'll see. That really depends on what I have time for. I know me and Matt definitely want to do another one as soon as we can, though. Alright, so I'm just mixing up more putty. And we're just basically going to do the other side now. And remember, this stuff dries pretty fast. So I mixed up a consistency something like this. You know, it's pretty, it's kind of like the consistency of paint, maybe. There we go. Got lots of the stuff now. Anytime that you're going over a particularly ghastly bump or divot in the cardboard, it's good to just go over it with a lot of putty. And that way you have basically creating one big block of marble around that, so you can carve out, once you're sanding it, kind of a either you're filling that divot or you're kind of piling putty up around a bump. So that kind of neutralizes the bump, because it makes it more of a, it's not really a bump if it's surrounded by other putty. it's kind of like if you surround a mountain with mountains, then it kind of ceases to be a mountain. And then you level all of it, well, then you've just got a flat ground. It's cool that we have so many tugs to choose from. Like, if you want to make a replica, you've got like 20. And they're all distinct. You've got, I always pretty much choose from the main 12. That's what I think of first. It's kind of unusual that I made Blue Nose, because I had never made him. I'd made him maybe twice before I made the replica. Whereas every other tug I'd made like 5-6 times in my life. In various forms. I would have thought I would have chosen someone else, but no, I felt like making Blue Nose at the time. Honestly, Lemmy, I think you'd make a good arts teacher for 3D sculpting. You know what you're doing and what steps you need to take and what different techniques do for what's best for models. Who said that? Wangon Driver. Well, thank you, Jay. Yeah, I try to be as clear as possible. These live streams are, I imagine they're probably kind of hard to follow. But some people have followed them, so that's good. But I'm working on that wooden railway tutorial right now. It's going to be a really long video. It's going to be like 3 or 4 hours, I'm guessing. But it's going to be very comprehensive, and I feel like anyone's going to be able to follow that. Like, it's going to be really, because it's a properly edited video. It's not like this. It's a lot more straightforward. And it's a simpler model. So I feel like pretty much anyone could jump in and follow that tutorial. So if this is a bit overwhelming to you, well, that other one is going to be, a lot easier. And I go, nice and slow through the whole process. So I'm surprised by how well the splash rails turned out on the other side. So this method works pretty well. You really want to just create a thick coat of this putty all around the splash rails. Hey Lemmy, I have been making 3 TUGS models, and someone has commissioned me to make him a 10-cent, says Scarlo the Old Engine. Oh, that's cool. Hey, Scarlo the Old Engine, you said you DM'd me pictures of your sunshine, but I could not find you in my Twitter DMs to save my life. Who are you on Twitter? Why are people talking about Toby? The car shifter says Toby looks like chocolate with panels. Wangon Driver says, hey Lemmy, cheers for the nice message on Twitter the other day. Soz for the late reply, but yeah, would love to join a stream again one day. Don't worry. I've replied to people 6 months late before. I had Twitter on mute because I keep getting spammed with notifications and it got annoying. Yeah, I don't blame you. You really you want to cover the splash rails with putty to such an extent that like you can't even see the original masking tape seams. Like, you really can't see them. Like, you can't even see them at all. You know, I mean, when you're done covering it with putty, it really should look just like there's way too much putty on there, because there is. But then, you know, you're going to sand it down later and get rid of a lot of that excess. TUGS did not have to be nearly as extravagant as it was. They could have gotten away with maybe 3 tugs on each fleet. They had 12. I mean, that's a lot of main characters. And it worked brilliantly. It's interesting, shows like that have a really, really expansive cast. It kind of reminds me of, this is a weird comparison, but it reminds me of Total Drama Island. Like, they've got like 24 main characters or something that slowly dwindle down. And TUGS had a really immense cast right from the beginning too. But it didn't feel, it felt like it had been built up over a long time. You know, it didn't really feel like they just popped into existence all at the same time. It was so well thought out. And it felt almost like there had been several seasons prior to it. Like, there's some things, some elements of the show that just are brought up maybe once or twice, but are just such like deep elements. Like the fact that Warrior has a fire hose is almost never brought up. It's brought up maybe once when he's like, in High Tide, when him and Big Mac are leaving the Star Dock, and he's like, "I'll hose you down as we go," and it's like, well, that's so weird. Like, that he's got a fire hose. No one ever explains why. He just does. And like, clearly he has some history where he, you know, he was using it at some point. Clearly it has something to do with where he came from. But like, they don't ever go out of their way to explain that in an episode. It's like just that way because it is. Warrior has a fire hose because that's how Warrior is. Like, he doesn't, you know, they don't really feel the need to justify everything. Some things are just true. You know, some things are just, that's how they are. And that's really cool because that's how reality is, right? You're not intimately familiar with every single part of every person that you know. They have lives outside of you. And likewise, the characters in TUGS have lives outside of us as the audience. And it's really interesting that they handle it that way. This thing is getting really caked up, and it's really frustrating because like I can't just, usually like with paint I just kind of pull it off, but I can't do that with water putty. So I'm gonna go wash my brush. see. Did Scarlo the Old Engine answer my question about Twitter? So Lemmy, my Twitter is Sunshine and my @ is Boy Ducky. Oh, that's you. Okay, well that explains a lot. Yeah, that looks amazing. Yeah, I've seen your Sunshine. It looks fantastic. Yeah, I don't understand for the life of me why people insist on having a different name on every platform. I'm just master of the lemons everywhere. It's not even that I'm not even particularly fond of the name. It's just that it's like so much more convenient. It's a shorthand for me now. You know, I mean, it's people know that name and they associate it with me. So it takes a very long time to build up an online presence, an identity like that. So to then just go and change it would in my opinion, be a mistake. You know, for me, if I were to do it. The stern is in desperate need of attention. I guess I could probably get away with putting more putty on the other side too, couldn't I? And then sanding both of them next week. I wouldn't be totally opposed to like casting this and making other replicas using it. If only it wasn't so expensive. Because that's what they did on the show. I mean, all the every hole was just a duplicate. For the tugs that shared them. But it's just so incredibly expensive to cast something in general, but especially at this scale. You know, it's ridiculous. Cost me something crazy like $50 to like $100 just to make one hole. Well, I suppose if you factor in, you know, what your time is worth, that's probably not too crazy. I mean, think about how long it's taken me to make this. Total, probably, let's see, it's probably been about 25 hours, give or take, since I started this thing. If I were being paid minimum wage to make this model, then that would be like what, $250, $300. So really, it's costing me $300 to make this. So when you think about it, if I were to actually, you know, rather than making another one, if I were to just cast another one for $100, that would actually be cheaper. Problem is, I don't really look at my time that way. I don't really count my time into the equation of how much something costs. Because I decide how much my time is worth, but I don't decide how much it costs to cast something in whatever material you cast stuff in, polystyrene or whatever. Well, people can call me Scarloey, and basically everyone I know on Twitter knows I am Scarloey, but I do prefer Asher because that's my real name, so Scarloey the Old Engine. Yes, does Blue Nose have a harbor tug hole? I didn't mean to click that, but no, he does not. Blue Nose has a separate hole. He's about 23.5 inches long. He's in between 10 cents and a harbor tug. So, you know, you've got the switchers, 10 cents, zip and zug. Sunshine is 17 inches long. Switchers are 20 inches long. That's 10 cents, zip and zug. Sunshine's a little bit smaller. He's 17 inches long. Then we've got the harbor tugs, which are 28 inches long, which are Big Mac Warrior, Top Hat, Zoran, Zebedee, Zach, Fire Tug. And then you've got what I call the river tugs, which are basically Sea Rogue, Blue Nose, Sea Rogue's Uncle, Boomer, Burke, Blair, you know, the Pirates, the Ghost Fleet, many of which are all the same model. So those are like 23.5 inches long. So those are a separate hole. I may not be able to leave it upright this time. I should probably leave it, you know, upside down. think I'll wash my brush one more time and then put one more coat of putty over everything. He is now invisible, says George the Steamroller. I'm afraid not. I feel like the Tugs episodes are out of order, says Scarlo with the old engine. Well, it depends on what order you're talking about. I would say, so there's a few different orders. Some people argue, for instance, that Upriver comes after Big Freeze, that sort of thing. But there's only a few things that are really important when talking about the order of the Tugs episodes, in my opinion. So firstly, obviously Sunshine has to come first. It's also arguable that I believe it's in, what's the episode? There's an episode where Captain Star says, "Big Mac, thank you for winning us the steel contract." And he says, "That's okay, sir." And I think that's referring to High Tide. So maybe it's at the beginning of Munitions. I'm not sure exactly, but so that implies that comes after High Tide. Also, Munitions has to come after Regatta because Blue Nose is shell-shocked after that episode. And Pirate probably has to come before Regatta because Grampus isn't part of the Starfleet yet. But, like, pretty much most episodes, I don't think it's set in stone what order they have to be in. I would say that mostly the series doesn't rely on that. I would say, though, that there's two major things in my head that have to be the case. Sunshine has to come first, and Big Freeze has to come last. just because Big Freeze is so obviously the finale. The way that it's designed, the way that it ends with a song, it's so powerful. I cannot imagine watching Tugs and not looking at Big Freeze like it's the final episode. Like, that is so clearly meant to be the last one. And we're very lucky, too, that it was done that way. Because they could have been so daring that they... Like, I wonder if they knew there was a possibility that Tugs wouldn't get a second season, so they tried to cap it off in the most beautiful way possible. Because, you know, we got really good closure with Tugs. Even though it only ran for 13 episodes, it feels like those 13 episodes are complete. You know, like, of course the show could have gone on for a long time if they wanted to. Or if they were, you know, capable of it. But it doesn't feel incomplete. It doesn't feel like a... You know, it feels like a complete final season, you know? You know, a final first season. The way that it sets everything up in the beginning and then it ends on such a beautiful note. And the fact that the episodes are 15 to 20 minutes long. I mean, 13 episodes sounds like a really small amount until you remember that this isn't Thomas, this is Tugs. The episodes are 4 times the length. So really, that amounts to 2 seasons of Thomas. Not bad. So, you know, I mean, I would say that even though Tugs was relatively short, I think that it did everything. It did all the most important things. You know, it did just enough. And I think we're very lucky for that. I mean, it's not like it got canceled in the middle. We have the whole show, you know, we have the whole season. And, you know, it's structured in a way that feels satisfying. Now hold the phone. I'm painting really thick over this, and look at how smooth this looks. Just by going over that with another layer. I haven't even sanded that yet. But it's just because I'm going over it really thick with a lot. Maybe I'm just not putting enough of this stuff on. Yeah, I mean, that makes it look so much better. I'm just going to keep globbing this stuff on here. So that's a new technique. You know, rather than putting a thin layer on and sanding it, put a thick layer on and then cover that with another thick layer and just keep going like that. So it's covering up like most of the imperfections really well. That's good. That's really good. Oh my God. What was I thinking before? See, basically what I was doing before, and what I did on Blue Nose and on Zip, and I guess on Hercules, but there's still time for him, is that I was, you know, like looking at this side, right? It looks good, but you can see there's still a lot of kind of little, you know, kind of pits, a lot of little dents, a lot of little, you know, it's very, a lot of blemishes. However, if I just go over that again in long brush strokes with a really thick layer of putty, you get this, which is just so much better. That's so clean, so nice. And that's before sanding. Imagine how that'll be after sanding. I was about to finish up, but I think actually the stream's going to go on for a little bit longer because, wow, that just goes right over any imperfections. You want to make sure that you mix the stuff pretty thick. You know, the consistency of maybe thick paint. I'm going to need to reply to a text in a second here, meaning I'm going to have to turn you guys off for a second. Rather turn my own camera off. So that'll give you yet another opportunity to declare that I've gone invisible. Just look at the difference there. That's so smooth compared to this. Like, whoa. And I'm definitely doing the same for the other side now. I'm going over it again, because that's just too good to pass up. But first, I'm going to go quiet for a minute or so. Alright, I'm done being invisible. And I'm about to finish puttying up the side of this. I'm just going to go over the side that I did at the beginning with another thick layer because I really want this to be my smoothest model yet. Like, I love Blue Nose, but his hole isn't perfect either. He does have some dents that I would love to buff out on this one. I know this is supposed to be Zebedee, but for some reason I keep picturing it as Big Mac. Maybe I'll change it to Big Mac. goes right over most of the imperfections. This brush is getting all caked up, just quicker and quicker. Alright, I'm gonna have to mix up just a little bit more. And that means washing the brush. Lemmy, what do you do after you end one of these lives? I assume you mean live streams. It's Trey's Train's question. What do I do afterward? I mean, I live my life. It's like, not like there's one specific thing I do right after it ends. You know, I might go and work on other models, or I might go talk to somebody, or I might go, you know, have a snack. Might write a story. You know, that's a lot of different things. I mean, today, after this ends, I don't know what I'll do. I really don't feel like editing that wooden railway tutorial. I hate editing tutorials. It's not fun at all. Like the reason that I'm doing these live streams, in fact, is because I just could not stomach doing a full tutorial of this, right? Because you can imagine, it would be, this whole process would be 25 hours of footage that I would have to edit down into like 3 hours. And even that people would complain about. They'd be like, oh, well, it's way too long. 3 hours? It's like, oh, I'm sorry. Would you prefer 25 hours? Because that's the alternative, bucko. But, yeah, that's the thing. Like, this is really, this takes a really long time to do. I like making models. I love making models. But I like teaching people how to make models, too. I enjoy that as well. What I don't like is editing the process of me making models. That's not fun. But it is the best way to convey the information on how to make wooden railway models, I think. Like, I think that's the best medium for me to convey that concept. Because those models are simple enough that I think I could get away with doing a detailed, edited tutorial. But these models take so long, these replicas, that I just had to do the whole thing live. Because otherwise, I would feel compelled to edit it, which would take forever. That's cool. I have been thinking recently. I don't know what I would do with this line of thought, but I've been thinking recently, like, it'd be so cool to do a few design changes on the TUGS models. Like, for one thing, I've talked about this before, most real boats have, the water line in below is painted red. Imagine that on the TUGS models. Imagine that it goes from black to red underneath the water line. That would look so cool, heavy duty, just so, like, so, it would make them look a lot beefier, I think. Because right now the entire hull is black, and it would be so cool to have the water line actually represented. I've also thought about, like, some tugs, they all have the exact same hull. I don't think it would be that way. I feel like that was just a compromise the show had to make. Can you imagine if maybe Zoran was, like, a little bit longer, maybe his splash rails were a little different, and then Big Mac was, like, just scaled bigger, like he was just a really beefy tug. Because right now he's the same size as Warrior. Why is he Big Mac when Warrior's the exact same size? It's like, it'd be cool to, like, just make Big Mac bigger, right? And I think they intended this with the show because the way they consistently set the tugs on their trolleys is different. Like, not all of them sit at the same level. Some of them are up out of the water more. Like, Big Mac's really high up out of the water most of the time. And I think that's to give the impression that he's bigger, when in reality his hull is identical to the other ones. Let's see. Lemmy, is this water clay available in Australia? It's not water clay. It's water putty. But I don't know. I mean, I assume it's available everywhere, as in if you buy it off the internet. I mean, I don't know if it's in stores, but I would just get it off the internet. That's what I would say. So I would think it's available anywhere, depending on where you buy it. But yeah, I don't know. But again, like, I wouldn't say you don't have to use water putty, right? Like, you could use something else. As long as it does kind of the same thing. As long as it's something that you can smear over the whole model and make it smoother, and then maybe sand. That's really all you got to do. And you can do that with a number of materials. It's not like this isn't just some magic material right here. I mean, it's just what I happen to come across. So, find your own material. If you can't find this, then, you can probably find something better. So I would say just search around, experiment with different materials. It's not the end of the world if you can't get water putty. Thomas the Dank Engine says, and where can I get it? Like, online, type in Durham's water putty, and then look at sites that are available to you. It's like we're not in the 1950s. You don't have to walk into the local general store and buy it. It's like you've got the internet, right? You should be able to find it. I should hope. I mean, I got it from Home Depot, but I mean, none of us should be going to Home Depot right now. It's during COVID time. So buy it online. Look it up. Just do some research. Figure out the best site to get it on. I would say though, don't spend more than like $10, right? Like, I got this whole can, which is 4 pounds, 1,814 grams. I got this whole can for how much? For like $7. So, it shouldn't be expensive. I wouldn't have gotten it if it was expensive. But you can also find another material that works better. Solomon says, hey, Lemmy, tug classes aren't really a thing. So, like, do you think an artist should me? That makes no sense at all. Do you think someone should make drawings of the tugs as unique vessels? Asks Solomon. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a cool thing to do, is for somebody to do some artwork like that. I mean, it's like, I've got my own ideas. I would be more excited to build models of those than just draw them. But you could, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if you wanted to differentiate the tugs more, how would you do it? But it's interesting. You say that tugs don't have classes. You're right, but it's not like they're consistent in the show either. I mean, that's my problem with it, right? Is clearly like Zoran and Big Mac are not supposed to be the same class of boat, right? Because they have totally different superstructures and totally different, like all the different, like all the features above the deck are totally different between them. It's just the hull that's identical, right? And that's the thing. I feel like, where am I going with this? I feel like I have putty in my hair. But that's the thing. I feel like the tugs are not supposed to be, it's not like Big Mac and Warrior are supposed to be the same class. Even if they have like the same superstructure and the same hull and everything.
I think that was just a compromise that the crew made. And so I would say that that's, probably the case. That they, up with my hair today. See, my hair has become so long that I don't even know where it's coming from. I can sweep it back, and it may not even be coming from that direction. I like having long hair, honestly. I do, but it can be quite annoying at the same time, like anything in life. Anyway, what was I saying about boats? So I don't think like the tugs are meant to have the same hull. Like I don't think they were designed to give off that impression. And you can tell by the way they set them all differently in the water. They paint different parts of the hull depending. Like say, Zach has his lower splash rail is a lot more weathered than the higher up one. And then his flyer rails are black. They're not white. They're almost trying to like take your attention away from them so that he doesn't look so much like Big Mac. So like there's a lot of variation in the way they decorate the hulls. But then it's so clear that they are the same shape. And I don't think they're supposed to be the same shape. They're supposed to be to differ. I bet Big Mac is supposed to be a lot bigger and Zoran is probably supposed to be a lot longer. Like I think it'd be cool if Zoran was a bit longer, kind of in between Hercules and like, Big Mac, kind of like a, like not quite an ocean tug, but probably the closest thing that Zed stacks have to an ocean tug. I think that would be a neat design for him because he's, you just look at his head and you look at how narrow his superstructure is, how narrow his head is. He gives off this impression of being very lanky, very long, very, and I feel like you could exaggerate that with the length of the hull. So that would be cool. I think, in general, you could do that with a lot of tugs. You could change their general proportions so they don't all have the same holes. I think that would look really cool. Like, I think I would like Big Mac to be a lot bigger. If he was like if he was an inch or two wider, if he was a few inches longer, if he was like still not crazy, like not a lot bigger than Warrior, but a little bit to the point where it's clear that he's bigger than the other tugs. He's the biggest tug in the harbor in terms of like width, in terms of like heft. He'd be the biggest. And right now he's no bigger than Warrior, so it's like kind of it doesn't really fully capture that. If I were to do like a full detailed tug series, not like this Wooden Railway thing, but like a full replica series, I think I might change certain things like that. I think it would be cool. Like in the same way that as Thomas progressed, every time they refurbished the models for a new season, they kind of changed. It would be cool to see tugs finally get that progression. Where we get to see it age, we get to see things change intentionally and unintentionally. Like the idea that like after a certain season, all the tugs have a red water line, I think would be cool. Like there's no explanation for it. It's not like they were given that. It's the same thing as like Thomas all of a sudden having a different blue, or the same thing as like Percy and Henry becoming a different green in some seasons. Like it just happens, right? And there's no real justification for it within the universe. It's just a cool stylistic thing that shows, okay, they took the models, they refurbished them, they changed them, and they added some things, and then they put them back in the show. So I think that would be really cool, but it would also be really neat if all the models had unique hulls. And that's something that would, when they were making the show, they were doing them all in the same workshop. It made sense to cast them all and, make replicas, essentially. To make the first hull and then just kind of duplicate it 6 times makes sense. But I think it's pretty cool to actually, like, because I'm making these from scratch, that I could make them all different. I don't have to make them all identical, right? I mean, this, but yeah, I mean, I think for now I'll just stick to making exact replicas. But then one day in the distant future, it would be really cool to tweak the designs of the characters. Not too much, but just a little bit, Lemmy, I have a 4-engine battle for the Express in my series. Big City Engine Fowler, Rebecca. Oh, that sounds interesting. Rebecca, written properly. Gordon and Maud, the King Arthur class. That sounds really cool. 4-engine battle for the Express. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to write like a battle for the Express story. That sounds so cool. Like that's such an epic thing. I have a few stories that I've written that are like that. I had one between Gordon and Emily that was really cool. That I hope sees the light of day one day. It was pretty neat. But yeah, Battle for the Express is a really cool concept. I imagine Zoran would be like Derflinger in my series, if you remember, just really long and sickly looking, says Salman. I don't know about sickly, right? But definitely not closer, further in the direction of Derflinger than he is in Tugs. I would say that. That would be cool though. Like, I wonder. I mean, would that be a neat thing to do? You know, if I were to make, I don't know. Like if I were to make a Zoran and I made the whole just longer in general, that could be a neat thing. But anyway, for now, we've got this. And this looks really cool, I'll be honest. This feels like having one of the actual holes. It is so much heavier now, and also so much more rigid. It is the coolest thing. It is the coolest thing. All right. So then I think I will set it. Is it dry enough for? Yeah, what the hell. I think you guys are closer than usual. Oh, look at that. That's very cool. Ryan and Edward fan says, Lemmy, when are you going to continue your series? It's been 4 years. You kidding me? I'm not going to. I mean, I'm definitely going to make more stories, but like, are you really holding out hope that I'm going to continue a 4-year-old series? I was a different person then. That was so long ago, right? I'm still proud of it, right? But that's like so far in the past, you know. But you know, I mean, but also, you know, like it's a very insensitive thing to say. It's like, you know, when are you going to continue your series? When are you going to make more episodes? It's like, whenever I can finally manage it. Like, you think I don't want to? I'm desperately trying, right? And I've been trying to make another episode for 4 years. I've just not had any success, right? It's just too much work. You know, I get demotivated too easily. But like, you really think that I'm just dragging my feet, that I'm just slacking? God, people can be so out of touch. I swear to God. You know, I mean, it's, yeah, I don't understand it, right? But anyway, you know, you're lucky you're seeing any of me at all, right? A lot of people would have just disappeared by now, you know, done with YouTube. I would have done my big, I'm leaving YouTube, bye everyone thing, but I didn't, right? I'm still here. That's something, isn't it? You know, I don't know when I'll be able to release, you know, a proper, or, you know, an episode, a film, anything like that. I would love to, desperately I would love to, but I've been trying to for the past 4 years and I've had just no success. For whatever reason, I became highly demotivated like 4 years ago. And you know, really right after JBS, so more like 3 years ago. But yeah, I've just not been able to make anything since then. You know, and it just, yeah, I haven't had any success. But I'm still working at it, right? Like I've started so many projects. It's just the fact that they never get finished. But I do start them, and I get quite a ways, and I've made a lot of stuff to my credit in the last 4 years, and it probably should count on its own as impressive. But I haven't made an episode. I haven't made anything of that nature. I haven't produced a story. And that is really what I care the most about, is making stories, producing them, actually making short films, essentially. Because that's what episodes are. I mean, they're short films, essentially.
Ryan and Edward fan says, sorry for asking.
I sorry for asking, or sorry for, there's nothing wrong with asking, right? But it's the fact that you say it's been 4 years. It's a rude way to ask the question. You could be more polite than that, I should say. Perhaps you didn't mean, I'm sure you didn't mean any harm, but yeah, I mean, think about it for a second, right? If you had made something and a lot of people liked it, and then 4 years later, for an unknown reason, you haven't produced anything else. You haven't produced any more of that series, and people are hounding you about making more of it. It would get annoying, wouldn't it? Just put yourself in my shoes, right? I don't think I'm unreasonable for being, a little bit annoyed by it. Especially because I'm trying to remedy it and just have been unsuccessful. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting the way that people, ask those questions.
I saw someone eat a Big Mac prop at McDonald's, says Cheeky Blue E2. That's unhealthy, for starters. Aha, because it's because it's a burger, says Salmon.
Oh my God. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I my hope is to start making a series of some kind. I don't know what it will be, but I hope to make something. It might be Thomas, it might be Tugs, it might be whatever. But I want to get back to that. I really enjoy doing that. But it's a lot of work to make something like that. You gotta. It's basically every art form that comes together. You have to create. It's visual arts. It's also you also need music. You also need writing. You also need voice acting. You also need there's acting. There's music. There's visual arts. There's audio. There's cinematography. There's like every art form comes together in making videos. I mean, it really does, and it's a lot to juggle. Some people juggle it very well, but other people, it can you can get bogged down in the details, and I tend to get bogged down in the details quite a lot. And after 2016 or so, the details just kind of were too much for me, and so I couldn't really finish videos like I wanted to. But
Salmon says, hey Lemmy, do you reckon Hercules is respected for his size or for something he did in the past? It would be cooler for him to be respected for his actions. I think I
don't know. I mean, his size has to play into it. Like, I think... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it kind of has to be his size, doesn't it? I mean, what are the odds? I mean, I think that it's just that he's this... Here's what I would say. I would say that it's partly his size because, he's the biggest tug in the harbor, right? So he's respected for that. But I would say there are a lot of ocean tugs out there. He's not the only one. There's probably hundreds of ocean tugs, around the United States. And the fact that he specifically is a big deal, I think that's because he rose above all the others, in that he had a really strong work ethic, and that he had just he was willing to do the jobs that nobody else dared to do, and do them with a cool demeanor. And I think that it is because of his actions that he is one of the most well-known and beloved ocean tugs. But I would also say that if he had been a harbor tug, that never would have happened. So it is partly because of who he was built to be. But there's a reason why he sticks out among ocean tugs. I think that's there's a balance there. Insane Edward says, Lemmy, I volunteer to help you on editing, voice acting, writing. For what, Sam? That's a lot of fields, firstly. Let's see. What if we never found Top Hat's model because Topham took his top hat? Says Cheeky Bluey too. What does that even mean? That's the crossover of the ages. Scarlo the Old Engine says, I sent you a picture on Twitter of my top hat face mask. Cool. I will probably check it later. Top hat face mask. Top hat would be a neat one to build. This could be top hat. Like this is exactly the same shape as top hat. I mean, if I really wanted, then I could turn this into top hat. Could be cool. I can help with writing and some model making for the series, says Flying Scotsman 4472. What is the series? I assume I talked about a lot of stuff like 5 minutes ago. I assume we're talking about the Tugs Wooden Railway thing. Let's see, Top Hat. Top Hat's top hat is actually the Fat Controller, says Will Thomas 199. When will you do Billy Shoepack? When will I do him? Like an impression? Like when will I do Billy Shoepack's trademark dance? I don't know. The question is, when will I make a replica of Billy Shoepack? I'll be honest with you, I'm not likely to, because I don't like Billy very much. He's kind of one of my least favorite characters. I still really like him, right? He's still, like, every character in Tugs is awesome. But I don't like Billy all that much. He's just kind of a weird design. He's not very attractive to look at. He's I wouldn't want to make a model of him. But he's a great character, I would say. We need a Tugs movie, 10 Cents and the Magic Barge. Little switchers can do big things, says Useful Engine 11. That reminds me of Tugs and the Magic Waterway. Does anyone remember that? That was a pretty exciting thing. They were. I mean, I don't think it ever really got off the ground, but this was like a long time. This was like 2008 or something, maybe even earlier. It was like they were going to take footage from Tugs and also mesh it with some stuff from Elias, which is it's like a Norwegian CGI boat show or something, which creeped me the hell out as a kid. Elias always freaked me out. But there were a few other things too. They crossed a few things over, but the way they were doing it and hyping it up was really exciting to me as a kid, and I've never gotten over that. Is just how cool that was. I think it was Eli J. Brony was involved in it. Don't know who else. But yeah, no, it was really neat. That was an exciting time to be a Tugs fan, when Tugs was just kind of first hitting the internet and people were kind of figuring out how they felt about it, and and kind of talking about how cool the show was. Insane Edward says, Lemmy, can we talk tomorrow on Skype about my Lily Lightship size? About Lily Lightship size. Can we talk, I guess, to try to deduce how long she is? Maybe. I'm let me think. What have I got to do tomorrow? I've got to edit this tutorial. That's something I have to do. No promises, but maybe. Let's see. Personally, my least favorite is Izzy Gomez, as Useful Engine 11. Yeah, Izzy's so complicated, because I really like him, but
he's also a horrible stereotype. It's like, how do we get around that? We can't really. Dear, oh dear. Will Thomas 199 says, "Why do you need to do that on Skype?" Ha ha ha. That's true. Yeah, I think it's just because it's an excuse to talk to me in private. But I don't blame you. I don't blame anyone is the thing. It's like, I've had a lot of good discussions with really good people, but I also just like don't. It takes a lot of mental energy to talk to so many folks. And perhaps a more extroverted person could do it. But for me, it's like, I meet all these people in these streams, all these lovely people, but it's hard to like keep up with everybody. How do you do that? It's some people just have 5 calls a day. That's they can talk to 10 people in a single day. That's impressive that they can keep up with that many people in the community. But for me, no, it's more like 1 a day or 1 every few days, right? I'm not that linked into the community to the degree where I can keep up with so many people, because a lot of people want my attention. And you can't help but grow to resent it just a little bit. Because, people keep asking, right? They despite the fact that they can see you're swamped, they keep asking for your time. But also, do you want them to stop asking? Because then you've lost friendships. So that's not good either. But where's the balance? Where is it? How do you balance so many people? And how do you balance them with so little energy? That is really the question. I don't have the answer to it yet. Except for being generally irritable. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. What time is it? Oh my god, the iPad is absolutely covered with dust. You see that? Is that visible to you?
3:24.
Yes, indeed. Solomon says, "Hey Lemmy, love you, brother. You're such a sweet guy. You always call others lovely, but hardly anyone I see call you that. You keep it real gangster." Yeah, well, everybody gangsta until Thomas puts in the cigar. That's what I have to say, Saul. Anyway, so let's see. Insane Edward says, "I'm sorry, I'll leave," with 2 I'ls. It's always everybody's response, right? It's not a conversation. It's just you just quit it. You're like, uh-oh, he doesn't like what I said. I'm gonna run for the hills instead of meet me where you stand, right? And respond. It's like let's see. Insane Edward says, "There's more important people you should talk to. Sorry for wasting your time." Sam, no. What more important people? What do you think exactly? What is your notion of why? Look, I don't want to call because I'm depressed. That's the reason, Sam. I don't want to call because I don't want to talk to anybody. It's not because I'm some bougie upper class 1% big user who's constantly hanging out with Enterprising and Turtles. That's not what it is. Sam, I'm way closer with you than I am with any important person. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. The reason is because I don't have the energy. The reason is because I don't feel like talking to anybody. That's the reason, right? So don't claim that you're unimportant. That's not the case, Sam. You're immensely important. It's ridiculous to say anything else. And I vastly enjoy our conversations when I have the energy for them. But oftentimes I don't have the energy for them. Most of the time I don't. And that's the truth of the matter. That's why I turn so many people down. I don't have the energy, right? But it's not because I have better things to do, right? Everyone, I shouldn't say I'm busy. I'm not busy. I just don't have the energy, right? But it's not because I'm doing other stuff. It's not because I'm over hanging out with the bigwigs, right? That's not how I spend my time. You kidding me? My group of friends is it's not defined by any echelon of the community. You know, I have a vast swath of friends. Some of them are very well known. Some of them nobody knows. And you know, some of the people I'm closest with are, you know, barely have any subscribers, and that could not matter less to me. You know, so anyway, you know, my point is, you know my point. Sam says, Will, Bailey, Matt, no, it's fine, Lemmy, I get it. I have to do modeling. I've just lost so many people who I considered friends, and I'm terrified to make you angry or you to hate me. Sam, you can't make me hate you. That's ridiculous. I may not always agree with you. I may not always be, you know, totally, you know, down to call, but I don't hate anyone in this community. I can't think of a single person that I hate. Maybe I could think of a few, but I should not say them on the stream. But, you know, the only people I hate in this community are like awful people, like pedophiles, right? Those sorts of people, right? Like those are, you know, like that's a whole different ball game, right? I don't hate someone just because they want to hang out with me. Like, who can blame you for that, right? But there's a difference between, you know, not wanting to hang out and not liking a person, right? You know, I mean, I'd like there's like 20 people that I'd like to talk to every day if I could. But I just don't have the energy, right? You know, I don't have the energy for it, and that's really what it is. You know, but it's not your fault, Sam. You know, it's not your fault. You know, it's just that I'm not quite reliable. You can't really rely on me to be someone you can regularly spend time with, because I dip out of existence sometimes. That's just what happens. You know, but you know, anyway. I just have mad anxiety, and it gets better, and it gets the better of me, but you always help me, my lemsties, says Sam. All right, well, yeah, I understand that, right? I have the same anxiety, you know. I mean, I'm constantly afraid that people hate me for whatever reason. I understand that. I relate heavily to that. You know, but you have to remind yourself that it's ridiculous, and usually people don't love or hate you. They're just apathetic. That's most people. And there's a few people that really love you. And then there's probably no one who hates you. Like, you got to do a lot for people to hate you. You got to, like, burn down an orphanage for people to hate you, okay? Hating someone is a lot of work, right? It takes a lot. It's a concerted effort to hate someone. Most people don't hate, I would say. So don't worry about people hating you. This goes out to everybody here. Don't worry about people hating you. I know it's easy to think that if you say something wrong, or if you misstep somehow, that all of a sudden everyone hates you. It's not the case the vast majority of the time. So and more often than not, people like you. That's just how it goes. That's life. But yeah. I love calling Lemmy a Lem, says Floating Vessels Guy. That's a pretty good nickname. Scarlo, the old engine, says, someone hates me because I kicked them from a Discord server, and I don't care. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's easy to say you hate someone, but what does it really mean, right? I mean, if they say they hate you, like, what does that actually entail? You know, I mean, to really hate someone, that is a strong feeling. And I feel like it's easy to say you hate someone, but really it might mean you have to have a disdain for them, or it might mean you dislike something they did. But to say you actually hate them, hate is a very powerful and strong emotion. And I can't think of anyone I really have it for. So, you know, I would say, you know, don't worry too much about that. But also, you know, make sure that you're not giving people reasons to hate you either. I straddle that line. You know, I try to be very nice to people, but at the same time, I speak my mind. So if I'm annoyed by something someone's doing, I'm going to tell them. It's the fair thing to do, right? It would be unfair to people to not tell them how I feel. And it's difficult because in these streams, it's full of teenagers. There's a bunch of youngsters here, right? And you don't have fully developed, social frameworks yet. And, and of course you're full of anxiety, and that'll probably pass, or maybe it won't, but hopefully it will. And it's like, so of course, if I say, that's annoying, I don't like that, then you're like, oh, it's the end of the world, he hates me now. And it's like, no, trust me, I don't hate. I've never encountered a person in my streams that I hate. It's never happened. In fact, I can't think of anyone I didn't like. Maybe like a few, if somebody was like bullying someone else, yeah, okay, I don't like them. But even then, that's not hatred. That's just disappointment. So anyway. Why are you Master of the Lemons? Asks Braden C. Because Leader of the Lemons was taken. Useful Engine 11 says, you probably hate Dougie, lol, because he tells you to pop a squat. I know you don't really hate him. I love Dougie. They're great. It's like, there's something funny about these running jokes of just like the idea that there's this random kid in Scotland that really, really wants me to pop a squat. It's absurd. I gotta say, I actually do love those running jokes. But yeah, youngsters are now basically the equivalent of Duke. I don't know what you mean, but I'm sure it's a good comparison. Useful.
Let me pop a squat, says Scarlo the old engine. I won't. I may like the ongoing joke, but that doesn't mean I would ever agree to pop that squat. Let's be very clear about that. If you think I would do that, that's absurd. That's clearly you've got a few screws loose.
I would never pop a squat. I don't think anyone should, in fact. I'd go as far as to say. I'll be honest, through this virus, I've been feeling insecure with myself because of me hiding behind a mask, says Useful Engine 11. I wouldn't feel insecure about that. I mean, obviously, you can't control it. If you feel insecure, that's totally valid. But I would say, like, protecting your identity is kind of important, right? I mean, you have to have a certain level of daring to go and put your face and name. I mean, everybody online knows my name and my face and the fact that I'm in California. They know all that stuff. And I guess I have that daring, but you can't undo it. So you want to be very careful. Let's see. I very dislike when people diss others just because they like something the person doesn't. For example, I enjoy Misty Island because of nostalgia, but people say I'm wrong or stupid, says Flying Scotsman 4472. Yeah, I very much agree with this, and I have personal experience with it because I made a whole damn movie to do that, right? I mean, the whole reason I made JBS How It Should Be was because I resented people who disagreed with me, and I wanted to, pick a fight with them, essentially. But, that doesn't lead anywhere, because the truth is we're all right and we're all wrong and we're all indifferent. There is no right answer to what fiction is good, because, there's no right thing to like, because liking is just an emotion. It's just a feeling, it's just it's entirely subjective, entirely arbitrary, what your favorite special is, it's like, so I would say, now granted, naturally, I feel the need to defend everything. As a person, I'm very territorial, and I have the tendency to want to go and say, oh no, this is the right thing, and this is why. I'll go and defend. I don't know. I'll get livid inside when somebody tries to put Thomas and Tugs in the same universe, for instance. Because in my mind, it's like, okay, but they're not the same, and they clearly go in different universes. But it's like, who cares? Who cares about that? I care, but who else cares exactly, right? And so you have to override that. Like Sam, Insane Edward, SG Media. You got to stop changing your name. But Sam has come up with some brilliant Tugs ideas, Tugs and Thomas ideas, crossover ideas, bringing the Tugs to Sodor. Really brilliant stuff that I love. But also, there's a part of me that wants to rail against it because I'm like, okay, no, but they don't go in the same universe. But that's me. And do we want every single thing that someone makes to look like what I would make? No, we want to have everything be different. And so it's so important that we have every perspective. It's great that Sam is crossing the two over unashamedly because it's giving us a new perspective. It's giving us more entertainment. It's giving us a version of things that is, you know, is new and fresh and enjoyable. And you know, I mean, you know, I'm a grumpy old young adult now, but you know, when I was 8, it was, if I saw two people cross over Thomas and Tugs, I thought that was amazing. I thought that was so cool. I did it for years. I've developed some distaste for it for whatever reason, but like it's cool, right? And you know, it should be celebrated. But that's an active thing some people have to do. Some people just don't care and don't take art that seriously, but for me, I do, and I kind of have to override that. It's that like if I see someone making an artistic decision I don't agree with, I have to remind myself that it's art, it's expression, and there is no wrong way to express your ideas. You know, so that's what I've realized by now. I wish I'd realized it back in 2017, but you know, what are you gonna do? If there was 5 models from the classic, let's see, if there was 5 models from the classic series, what would they be? Says asks Trey's Trains. If there was 5 models from the classic series, I don't know what you mean. You're gonna have to be more specific. If there were 5 models, like if we had to save 5 from the classic series, because that's an interesting question. Floating Vessels guy says, Lemmy, are you Sam Webster? Yes. It baffles me. How is it that you can know that, but that you can't be certain of it? Like, because I know I put it in the credits of JBS, and maybe you've heard it through the grapevine. Maybe it's like, yeah, where did you hear that exactly? Because like I think it'd be pretty definitive if it were in the credits of the movie. But I guess you could have heard it through the grapevine. But yeah, that is my name. I really don't understand how someone can prefer the TV series over the Railway series, but it's their opinion, and even though I don't agree with it, nor do I understand it, I don't start an argument over it, says Will Thomas 199. Yeah, and that's the right thing to do. That's the healthy thing to do. So just accept the fact that they're both equally valid to enjoy, right? You can't get defensive. And St. Edward says, people come, people go. Lemmy goes on forever. I do go on forever. But we've gained some people, so it seems as if people want to hear me go on forever. Let's see. Lemmy, opinion on the Grease and Oil podcast. I haven't heard that name for a while. I liked it. I think I stopped watching it maybe episode 7 or so. But I did like it. I kept up with it at first. But then I stopped paying attention. But yeah, it was good. It was good. I guess its spiritual successor now is Blue Midwest Mysteries. Or at least that's MPS's new, casual podcast. Yeah, which is also good. Him and Percy number 6 have a good banter. Useful Engine 11 says, personally, I don't feel ready to reveal my real name yet, but someday. Yeah, be careful about it, right? If you think it's the right time, whenever that comes, whether that's several years from now or never, just don't rush something like that, right? For me, I think I officially revealed it in JBS. I think that was because I wanted to have all real names in the credits. And then as for my face, I think that was at Shining Time in 2018 or whatever it was called back then, the meetup.
I think that was the first time for me. But it wasn't really that big of a deal, because that's the thing. It's like everybody already knows who I am. If they've heard me speak in videos, if they've seen what I've written, they kind of already know me in a way. And so if I show my face, if I say my name, that's not really the important part. Of course, that is the thing that will allow people to track you down. But I don't think I'm popular enough for people to try and track me down. I don't think I'm at risk for that. Now, if I became this enormously famous celebrity, that would be a problem, right? Maybe I would want to conceal my identity then. But I'm nowhere near to being that, right? There's just about 50 people maybe that recognize my face and voice or whatever. And okay, I mean, that's not really a big deal. What are the odds that out of these countless teenagers and then some 20-somethings, someone is going to come and track me down and figure out where I live? Probably not very likely, I would guess. But I'm also taking a risk in that capacity. But I'm kind of okay with that. I think, for me personally, I hate having to hide things. And at the same time, I do hide a lot of things. I hide projects, I hide scripts, I hide models that I'm working on. I don't show people things until very specific conditions are met. And so I guess I didn't want my face to be one of those things. I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I just wanted to get that over with, and then I can just do this. I can just sit here, and you can see my expression and my mannerisms, and I think that is a lot more fun, than being behind the camera or not showing my face or whatever. But yeah. Anyway. But yeah, I'd say useful. You don't need to reveal your name ever if you didn't want to. It's interesting though to have your face visible but not your name, because it seems like the face is the more revealing thing of the two. But at the same time, it's not, because if someone's going to track down your information online, your face is useless. You can't Google a face, but you can Google a name. Yo Lemmy, which Cruel Engines thesis ship would you like to see in TUGS scale? Asks Solomon. I might choose something small, just because otherwise it would just be ridiculous. When you say TUGS scale, do you mean like adjusted for size, like the Vienna? Or do you mean like actually scaled with the tugs? I'm going to say adjusted for size. So like maybe it would be like, I would love to see Godred. That would probably be what I'd want to see. That's a terrible idea, because that's like the most extreme one. But Godred would be really neat. I would love to see that. Maybe like 15 feet long. Let's see. Floating Vessels guy says, because I'm Ralph, my friends call me Wreck-It Ralph. It's pretty good. And St. Edward says, the only reason I would find your house is I would be sending you TUGS models. Oh my god. Scarloy the Old Engine. Hey Lemmy, are you going to do a Friends stream again? Yes, I will do a lot more of those. It'll I don't know when the next one will be, but yeah, I intend to keep doing those for the foreseeable future. If there was 5 models from the classic series that you could own, how would they be? Okay, I understand now, Trey. Why do I want to say Derek would be one of them? Who else? Ari and Bert would kind of be cool. These are weird choices. Season 5 models would kind of be cool. Like, old Slow Coach would be pretty neat. Like, I wouldn't want to own any of them. They belong in, like, a museum. But, like, if I just could have them, right, with no repercussions.
like if I could have perfect duplicates of them or something. Diesel would be a cool one. I'd actually really like to have Diesel. Diesel wasn't in season 4 or season 5. Isn't that weird? That's so weird. There is no season 5 Diesel. Weird. Will Thomas 199 says Lemmy, and then with a period. What? What is it, Will? Tell me. What are you responding to exactly? YouTube channel says, "Hey Lemmy, will you go to the Magic Railway show this year?" Probably not. No. I'm not ready to travel, cross country. I think COVID is still too big of a deal. I'm probably gonna wait until at least I think probably 2022 before I actually go to any major meetups. I think that's where I'm at. I don't think I want to. I don't think I want to chance it. I want to wait it out. I mean, it's so close. What? It's probably be the summer, I'd guess. I don't know, but I don't think I'm gonna risk it, especially because I got to get on a plane, right? Whereas most like a lot of people are on the East Coast, they can just drive there or whatever, wherever it's gonna be. But yeah, I'm probably not gonna risk it. I think I'm being very cautious with COVID. I'm already a recluse, so I really I just become even more reclusive when there's a global pandemic happening. So probably not, I would guess.
But one day I really want to go to some big show and bring some TUGS models and stuff. Bright side is I'll have more by then. I mean, this would be a cool thing to bring. Imagine that. I never get sick of this. This is so cool. This is so cool. This is just amazing.
I'm hosting a TUGS version of the Magic Railway show in the summer. It's online. Remember Lemmy? Says Insane Edward. Sam. Yes, Sam. I remember quite clearly. I would have to have some sort of memory loss to forget that awesome idea. And I do intend to attend. Let's see. Trey's Train says, "Is your Flying Scotsman made out of cardboard, Lemmy?" My Flying Scotsman? What is my Flying Scotsman? The 2016 one? The one from my series? Is that the one you're talking about? Because if so, yes. If you see anything that I've made, it's probably cardboard. That's what I have to say on the matter. I love how you call Godred extreme, despite he's on the smaller side of battleships and overall battleship history. Yeah, but compared to things in big city port, Saul, and compared to an ocean liner, I'm just thinking about the fact that the tank is 25 feet by 45 feet. And so he'd take up a lot of that space. But also, I don't know battleship history, right? So all I know is Godred. I will find you and I will steal your Zebedee when you finish it. You must finish it before I can steal it, says Will Thomas 199. Unless it doesn't turn out being Zebedee. I'll be honest, looking at this, I don't know if I want to make this Zebedee. I'm not sure exactly. I don't really know who I want it to be. I'm leaning towards Big Mac. I'm really not sure. It could make it Top Hat. I don't know. Maybe Zebedee. Yeah, I'm really not sure. There's still time to figure that out. Hey Lemmy, how would you like to join the Star Tugs Replica Trust? We want to make a full replica Star Tugs and Zed Fleet plus Lily and Grampus plus everyone else. Says Sam. I don't intend to join any large clubs at this time, but maybe one day. Maybe one day. Hat top, please make hop tap. Says Carlo with the old engine. Flying Scotsman 4472. The Adventure Begins is my 5th favorite Thomas special behind Hero of the Rails, but that's just my opinion.
I kind of don't lump The Adventure Begins in with the others because it's probably my favorite special. But the reason for that is kind of unfair. It's that the reason is that it's the nostalgia. It's the fact that it draws on what made, say, season 1 such a big part of my childhood. And then it just throws that back at me. And that's kind of the problem. Again, with the hair thing. And that's kind of the problem. Is that, it's great. It's amazing. It makes me feel great to watch it. But it can't really take credit for that. Because it feels great because it's banking off of something season 1 did. And so, it's not, all the other specials don't get to just draw from something else that was already amazing. They have to start from scratch. So for that reason, The Adventure Begins is probably my favorite special, but just because, of the legacy that it kind of, calls back to. So it's amazing, but it's also kind of unfair to put it in the same league, I think. And I was joking, Lemmy. There is no such thing. Also, I'm spending all day tomorrow catching up with this stream. I knew it. I knew you were pulling my leg. What do you mean? What do you mean you're spending all day tomorrow? Spending all day tomorrow catching up with this stream. We didn't really do much today, did we? Let's see. Please show Blue Nose's rudder and propeller, says Floating Vessels Guy. You've been asking me to do that for a very long time. And I keep telling you, Blue Nose is fine. I'll show you his propeller and rudder, and then I have to go. No, you know what? I'll wait until next time to show you that. And before now and next week, I'll actually hook him up so that his propeller actually is hooked up to power. And that way I can spin it for you and also move the rudder. That would be a lot better. I'm going to wait until next week to do that. Do you believe there is an Erdl top hat, Lemmy? Asks Trey's Trains. I really want there to be. But it's probably not. There probably isn't one. See, the original rumor, this rumor is as old as the TUGS community itself. The earliest I remember seeing it was 2007, 2008. There were claims that there were prototypes of Top Hat and of OJ and of Hercules, I think. And the claim was that those were seen in some magazine at some point. That pictures of the prototypes were seen. But there's never any evidence. Never been any evidence of it. And I don't think it's likely that prototypes were ever made. Because now we're seeing, now we can actually see, the proper, those pictures of, I lost my train of thought. Whatever. Let's see. Sea Rogue and Blue Nose are brothers. That's all since they share the same body, says Military Tank Studios. I've thought about that, but they have very different heads. And again, I think it's like a Big Mac and Warrior situation where they're not supposed to look identical. It's just that the crew had no choice. You ever think about the fact that Boomer and Blue Nose have the same superstructure? The doors are in the exact same places. They're just paneled differently. But they have the same superstructure. It's weird. Lemmy, I broke my ankle, so don't pull my leg, please. Also, I'm a cast. I'm not brilliant. I'm in a cast. I'm not brilliant. Jesus Christ, Sam, you didn't tell me this.
When did you break your ankle? How did that happen? You know, don't tell me on stream. We'll talk about that later. Jesus Christ. Be careful. Please, be careful, Sam. Be careful. Let's see. Can you send me a photo of Blue Nose's rudder and propeller on Twitter DM? You just don't give up, do you, floating vessels? No, I'll show you next week. That's already more than I have to do. I mean, you realize to do that, I'd have to take him, dig him out from all the other models, put him down, take him out of the housing, lean him on something, take a photograph of the propeller and the rudder, then put him back in the housing, put him back behind all the other models, then go upstairs, then port that photo onto my computer, and then send it through Twitter DMs. It's a lot of work just to do you a favor. I'm just saying, right? Also, I'm afraid of what you want it for. You're not using it for reference, are you? Because I had no idea what I was doing. I literally just guessed what it would look like. I don't have any. There are no pictures of his stern. I don't know what it looks like. I just guessed, right? Again, I don't know everything. Don't use my model as reference. I beg you, because it's use the show model as reference. Use the pictures of Boomer and Sea Rogue as reference. Use those. Because those are actually accurate, unlike what I make. Mine is just kind of cheap cookie cutter of the one on the show. So don't look at mine. Look at the one on the show. That's what I have to say on the matter. Don't let my errors become your errors. If I made the stern wrong, you will make it even wronger. That's how this works, right? It's like, if one person copies someone's work, and then another person copies his work, and then another person copies his work, and another person copies their work, and another person copies her work. Eventually, we see a constant degradation of the same model until eventually, we've just got something that doesn't look like it at all. So my thought process on this stuff is don't shot at me, Lemmy, says floating vessels guy. I surprise how shit I'm R, says floating vessels guy. I do not understand. Poor Lemmy, such a perfectionist. I'm not a perfectionist. No, I just it's not perfectionism, right? It's the fact that, look, if I make a replica of the one on the show, then it's going to be less accurate than the one on the show. If someone makes a replica based on my replica, it's going to be even less accurate. If someone makes a replica based on that, it will be even less accurate. That's just how it works, right? So, like, it's the same thing as, like, you shouldn't get your, you shouldn't get your news from a news station that got it from another news station that got it from another news station that got it from the original source. Just go to the original source, right? That's the way that, you should. That's how you figure out if something is true or not. That's how you effectively, fact check. And it's the same thing with models, right? Go to the original source. Look at the actual show. Look at pictures of Blue Nose. Look at him. Look at the actual model. If you look at mine, it's going to have flaws, right? And those flaws will only become more exaggerated the more that you base your model off of mine. You can, if you really don't care about that sort of thing. But I'm just saying, right? You shouldn't, I'm happy to give advice, but you have to realize that what I make is still flawed. It's not perfect. None of what we make is perfect. So, you gotta, it's better to go to the show. That's what I did. That's how I got good at this. Go to the show. I will come to your house, Lemmy, and take a picture of your Blue Nose and go away, says floating vessels guy. It's not my fault, I'm curious, says floating vessels guy, in all caps. Why all the caps, floating vessels guy? It's not your fault. Again, everyone's all about fault, right? Like, you think I'm mad with a smile like this? You think I'm mad? Like, I'm not. I'm just trying to give you advice to help you get better at this. That's all I'm doing. Right. Also, I'm. I don't know. I mean, it's. why does everyone get so freaked out, right? It's no wonder that that I'm so reluctant to talk to people I don't know in this fandom, when they're all so afraid of me for whatever reason. You know, when the second that I express an opinion that, you know, when I don't agree with them, all of a sudden they think that I'm raining down wrath from Olympus. It's like, I'm just some guy. We're on the same level, you and I. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, so, you know, it's just my opinion. My opinion is you shouldn't base your models on my models. You should base your models on the ones from the show, because I'm trying to imitate the show. So if you try to imitate the imitator, it's just gonna be less accurate. That's just my thinking. You know, but you know, that's what I'm saying. You know, my ankle pulled a Krakatoa. Credit to Salmon for a joke, says in St. Edward. Hey Lemmy, what if you gave Hercules machine guns? No context, just the idea of him having a one or more machine guns, says Salmon. Depends on the situation. I feel like he wouldn't use them unless he really had to. So he'd probably reject them, if it was in peacetime at least. Lemmy, what Tugs models have you started? Asks Scarlo the old engine. Have I started? That's a really elaborate question. If we're just talking about replicas, if we're talking about models in general, then hundreds. But if we're talking about replicas, it's easier to go down the list. I started with a 10 cents. He never got finished, but he showed me that I had the capacity to make replicas. So he was really good. After 10 cents, a few years later was Zorin, who was in kind of an O scale, but he's still kind of a replica. He was supposed to be really accurate. And then after Zorin was Big Mac, who I didn't finish because I realized his hole wasn't the right shape. After Big Mac was then Blue Nose. No. After Big Mac was then Hercules. I started Hercules, but I only got as far as the hole, but I intend to go back to him one day. And then after Hercules was Zip. I started Zip. I started making, you know, the hole. So it could have been anyone. Could have been Zip, Zug, or 10 cents. The switcher hole, right? So I made that. Only got as far as the hole, but I did finish it and paint it up and everything. And then I made Blue Nose, who, you know, I started Blue Nose, in fact, while I was filming the whole tutorial on Zip, because I couldn't, you know, I could only film that tutorial during the day, because I needed the light, right? I needed to have daylight. You know, so I got really bored because when I was done for the day, I still wanted to keep making models. So instead of working on Zip, I worked on Blue Nose. So I started Blue Nose, and I actually finished Blue Nose. He was the first one I ever finished. So Blue Nose was finished. And then I never really got past the hole for Zip because filming him during a tutorial was so annoying. But then, so I had Blue Nose, and then another long gap of time, and then like a month or so ago, I started making these things, the new Harbor Tugs. One of them will probably be Big Mac, and one of them will probably be Zebedee, is my guess. But again, that is subject to change. You know, basically, this one, you know, so before I made this one, I started another one. I've got actually a spare. I've got two of these, and that one is a lot less far along than this one is. But the other hole, you know, I started that because I couldn't wait until the Saturday that I was to begin these live stream tutorials. So a few days before that, I started making a Harbor Tug hole. And then I started the tutorial and started making this one. And so I've kind of gone on and off working on both of those. That one, you know, while I'm not, you know, while I'm kind of, when I'm not on stream, I can work on that one back there. And then this one when I'm on stream. So I've got two Harbor Tug holes in progress right now. This one's pretty far along, as you can see. But, you know, the other one is just kind of at the cardboard stage, but it's still pretty good. So how many is that? 10 cents, Zorin, Big Mac, Hercules, Zip, Blue Nose, 2 Harbor Tug holes. I guess that's 8. So technically I've started 8 replicas. 7 if you count only the ones that are in scale with the show. Do you have any trains customs to show off? Trains.
I have a lot of trains. I possibly more than tugs over the last few years. But a lot of them I'm keeping secret until I can actually show them in a proper video. Let's see. I had to yours a fake Toby for my first season, and finally I have a 2001 Toby and a gray face truck with it, says Trey's Trains. I had to use a fake Toby for my first season. Fake Toby. What do you mean by a fake? I don't know. That sounds kind of interesting to not have the standard Toby. That sounds kind of cool. Let's see. Am I the only one who thinks Top Hat would have a gun in his basement? That's a very specific thing to think. I don't. I could see Top Hat maybe having like a gentleman's pistol, but like they'd be like dueling pistols from like his grandfather. He wouldn't know how to fire it, but he would have one. Like, you know, he did, and then he would get into a duel and immediately regret it. I could see that. Do you know Lego Lover 117 in person? Asks Lego Fan 65. Well, it depends on what you mean by in person. I was close friends with Lego Lover for quite a long time. I haven't caught up with him as much the last year or so, but only because I've drifted away from quite a lot of people. But you know, I still quite like Garrett. I don't agree with his political beliefs. You know, a lot of them, but I still like him. You know, and I do consider him a friend. You know, I wish I would catch up with him really because we haven't talked in a very long time, which is a shame, I think. You know, but yeah, I haven't met him in person though. That was always the intention. We were hoping to meet in person back in 2020, but you know, COVID happened. But you know, the hope had been that he would show up to the Magic Railway show. But hopefully I'll meet him in person eventually. Yeah. Hello, please, may you stop spamming the chat and asking Lemmy the same question over and over again, says Will Thomas 199. Oh my god. I'm constantly in this state where I'm not sure whether to just be patient and not have a problem with all the spamming or dislike it. I'm really not sure. Because you get the same questions over and over again, and it gets tiring after a while. But at the same time, I can't blame people for having an interest in me. You know, like that's nice, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're all going to leave the stream with something today, then leave the stream with this. I'm not mad at any of you if you think that for whatever reason, nor do I dislike any of you. I like all of you. You've all had very interesting things to say, you know, and you know, I quite like all of you. Yeah, it's as simple as that. Now, you know, I may not always. You know, there may be there. You know, if you spam the same message over and over again, I may become a little bit annoyed. But annoyance can exist in tandem with respect and with you know, likability. You know, I mean, just because you know I'm annoyed by a single thing you do doesn't mean I just don't like you all of a sudden. That's not how the world works. It's not how the world works. You know, it's like, you know, it's, you know, in general, I like everybody here. Now and then you may message something annoying, but like everyone's annoying sometimes. I'm annoying sometimes, right? You know, that's just how it works. That's what it means to be human. But you can't take it to heart, right? I mean, you know, you can't make an enemy over a single comment. That's not, you know, it's not possible. Anyway, so everyone here is great. You're all great, and do not think anything else because you're all great. Now let's see. Sam says, Lemmy, I hate how we live in different countries, as I really want to thank you in person, hang out, and give you a hug for all you've done for me. I really want to treat you, Lemmy, like a friend, not a YouTuber. That's nice, Sam, but we are friends. I would say this. I'd say there's an important distinction between people I've talked to through streams and people I've talked to on Skype, right? Like, Sam, you and I have talked on Skype several times. In my mind, you're a friend, just a normal friend, right? You know, there's no difference between my friendship with you and my friendship with Matt Twillman or Train King James. You know, they're the same thing. Not quite as close, right? Because you and I have only talked a few times, whereas I've talked hundreds of times with those two. But it's the same type of friendship, just not quite as developed. You know, so I would say, you know, we are definitely friends. And, you know, I would say that everybody that I've talked to in these streams is, in a way, a friend. But there's a difference between, you know, talking to me one-on-one, you know, in a Skype call and talking to me on a stream. These conversations are fun. Of course they are. But they're also, you know, they're also not truly one-on-one deep conversations, right? We can't truly be close, any of us, until we actually have a close private conversation. That's the only way to really form a bond with somebody, I think. Now, in those friends streams, when I bring people on, I think those count as that, because then I can actually hear the person's voice. We can actually talk back and forth. You know, they're the focus. That, I would say, you know, that you could become a real friend through streams like that. But just, you know, this is imbalanced right here. You got to realize that. This is some nice entertainment. However, I'm on screen. You can hear my voice. I dominate the conversation. Whereas you know, all of you are just in the chat. And it's fun and it's interesting to hear what people have to say and where the conversation goes. You know, that's entertaining for me. But at the same time, you have to remember that it is not the same thing as a close personal friendship. You know, so I would say, you know, that's you know, that's an important thing to remember. You know, don't spend all your time thinking about me. Go find somebody you can have Skype calls with, because that's a real friend, somebody you can talk to one-on-one, you know, I would say. But yeah, Sam, I would definitely consider you, you know, an actual friend. You know, I would say that's definitely the case. Floating Vessels guy says, what's weird about hugging person you love? Nothing. There's nothing weird about that. Some people are uncomfortable with hugs. I'm not like that. I'm a hugger. You know, and that's just how I am. But some people are uncomfortable with displays of affection. So, you know, it depends on the person. But I'd say there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Lemmy, are you going to make the superstructure next, or are you doing the inside of the hull next? That's an interesting question. The inside of the hull, says Scarlo the Old Engine. I'm not going to do the inside of the hull. This is going to stay this way. It's interesting, though, because I guess you could do that, couldn't you? But now, I'm not going to see it, so I'm just going to leave it like looking like this. Plus, well, listen to that echo. Isn't that great? I made this, and now it makes this sound when I talk into it. But isn't that great? Like, you know, because then I could have this really accurate model. And then when somebody asks what's it made of, I can just lift up the deck and show them this and be like, cardboard. They'll blow their minds, right? I love that. The fact that there's evidence of what this is actually made of. You know, so for that reason, I'm going to leave the inside unfinished, but you could finish it off if you wanted to with much the same methods you used on the outside. But yeah, I'll start the superstructure next once I'm done with the hull. Let's see. Me and Lemmy became friends through our love of tugs and the Railway series, but I first talked to Lemmy on stream, says Will. Yes, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like, you know, my discussions, I think I had 2 discussions with Will on streams before we started talking in private. And I would say that through those, we became friends, you know, so Will's definitely one of those, you know, real true friends, because we've had, you know, direct person-to-person conversation. And that's really important to, you know, be in a position where you can have a conversation where both people can say something and be heard, right? And expect to be heard. Right here, a bunch of people are saying stuff and I may or may not respond to them. It's not quite fair, right? So, you know, that's the difference between a stream and, you know, a level person-on-person conversation. The new storyteller says, hello, Lemmy, nothing finished yet? Depends on what things are we talking about? Nothing finished yet. out of what things? Like, I mean, everything I intend to do for today on this specific model is finished. However, that's not, I mean, obviously the model isn't finished. That looks really cool. Look at that. Look at that. That's brilliant. Incredible. Lemmy, you are a very close friend of mine. That's very nice to hear, Will. Yeah, no, I mean, you've become a fast friend as well. You know, I mean, there's some people, you know, that, you know, I talked to a few times in streams, and, you know, eventually I can just tell we click, and you're one of those people. So, you know, absolutely. Let's see. The TUGS replicas I was asking, the new storyteller says. Yeah, the only TUGS replica that's finished is Blue Nose. Everything else isn't finished. Most of it will never be finished, right? I'm not going to finish Big Mac. You know, the first one, I'm not finishing him. Zoran's not going to get finished. However, Hercules will probably get finished at some point. Zip may get finished. There's a few things I think I want to change about the whole. I'm not sure if it's exactly what I'm looking for, but I think he'll be finished. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I guess the way you and me connected as when I got to be on Character Gallery. Insane because it's almost over a year ago, says Useful Engine 11. Yeah, no, I think that was pretty much, I feel like we talked before that. Was that the first time? Well, I know you've definitely been in a lot of live streams, and I think that's what's made the biggest impact on me. So yeah, like we're definitely friends, Useful. Let's see. What about me, Lemmy? And am I a friend of yours? Am I a friend of yours? Says Floating Vessels Guy. Yeah, I definitely call you a friend, but it's not the same type of friendship either. You know, I mean, you and I haven't talked. You know, I've never heard your voice. Maybe when I bring you into a few streams, then we'll grow closer. I definitely appreciate, you know, everything you've said in these streams, Floating Vessels. And I definitely, you know, it's great seeing how your models are coming along and everything. And, you know, just, you know, that's really cool. But at the same time, you know, you can't really rely on me to be a regular friend because, you know, I can talk, you can hear me, and you're in the chat, you know, so you don't really have a chance to, like, you know, kind of have the same level of conversation as what I have. So maybe once you get brought into like a few live streams, you know, where I bring on friends and stuff, then we'll actually be able to have, you know, two-sided conversation. But for now, it's difficult to, you know, like it's not quite a two-sided friendship. It's not quite fair. And that's like what everybody has to understand is like, you know, a friend is somebody that you are on the same level as, that you are the equal of. And of course, you're all my equals, you know, in terms of your value as people. But you don't have equal power to me in this situation, right? Like you're all in the chat and I'm on screen. So it's not really fair, right? And there needs to be fairness in a friendship. You know, you need to be in a call with them where when you say something, you can expect for it to be heard and responded to. Whereas here, it's 1 against 16, right? You know, there's 16 people here watching, and I've got to respond to all of them. And you aren't all talking to each other. You're talking to me. That's the difference. It's one thing for 16 people to be talking amongst themselves, but to all be focused on one guy, that's not quite normal friendship, right? That's entertainment. That's something else. I'm your entertainer right now. That's basically what it is. You know, so you got to go seek out people who you can talk to on a personal level, one-on-one, or one-on-two, or, you know, a small, you know, group of people. You know, I need to train my English because I'm so shy to speak in English. Don't be shy. Your English is fine. I can understand you perfectly fine. You know, I'd say don't be shy. You know, it's easy to say don't be shy, but I'd say don't worry about it. You know, I mean, it's about what you have to say, not how you say it. I do, Scarloey. I win, JK, by the way. We're on par, but you still hit the jackpot. I stand corrected. Sam is actually talking to somebody else in the chat that isn't me. Well done.
I can't even say a sentence. Okay. Well, you can definitely type a sentence. I would say here's the other side of things, right? Is it doesn't necessarily need to be an audible conversation. It needs to be a two-sided conversation. Like imagine, like if you find somebody and you message back and forth with them and have long conversations through text, you can become close friends with someone that way, I believe, as well. You don't actually have to be like, it doesn't need to be an audible conversation. You don't need to actually be speaking aloud. I don't think that's fully necessary. What's important is that you exchange ideas on an equal playing field. So I would say, I would say that's really the way to do it. Writing is easy, but I'm so worried to speak. Yeah, well, I guess the way to do it is first you become close with somebody through writing, and then after you've known them for a few weeks or so, then you actually get into a call and see if and that way, once you trust the person enough, you're willing to experiment with that. And that way, maybe if your English isn't so good, it doesn't really matter too much because you trust that person and they're not going to mind, right? And if you struggle to communicate, you can always fall back on the writing side of things. So that would be my advice to you, floating vessels. Let's see. Lemmy, can you please have a look at my YouTube channel after the stream, says Trey's Trains. Probably not. I'll probably be... Actually, I think I've got to be somewhere soon. Yeah, I should probably hit the road. But yeah, thank you for indulging me, everyone, and allowing me to hear myself talk for an hour and a half. Oh, I would say there are far more interesting people than me. For instance, somebody that you can actually talk back to. I enjoy these streams. They're entertaining, and I meet a lot of great people here, but talking to me in a chat is not the same thing as talking to your friend in a call one-on-one. Very different thing. And it wouldn't be fair for me to pretend that this is the same thing because it isn't. But you're all lovely people. I respect all of you. I'm glad you were all here today, and you all had a lot of very interesting things to say, and that is what's important. But anyway, so run along and find one-on-one conversations to be a part of, perhaps with each other. You're all here for a reason. You're all here because you share some interest in something. Reach out to each other. Why not? But anyway. So without further ado, I've been Master of the Lemons, aka Lemmy, and here let's end this thing with a boat. There is dust absolutely everywhere. Well, that's not really what I was going for. I'll be honest. All right, there's the day's boats. Pretty good if I do say so myself. Wow, it looks really good from here. Jesus Christ, that's phenomenal. Oh, glory. Wow. Look at the specs on those cameras. Wow.